What about this reasoning process, right? This reasoning process in terms of how to make good choices whenever we design a visualization, I think that it can be based on several questions that we can ask ourselves whenever we design a visualization. I'm going to just go over a few of them, not all of them, because otherwise it will take the entire course, but at least the fundamental ones. The first one is the most essential one. Why should my visualization exist in the first place? Do I need a visualization, or should I make this visualization in the first place? Right. That is related to the ethical thinking. So when should we make a visualization? Well, older writers, all the theorists of data visualization pointed out correctly, in my opinion, that the power of a visualization lies in when it helps us see things that we cannot normally see. For example, John Tukey, who is one of the sort of like the founding fathers of modern data visualization back in the 60s and the 70s. He wrote the book Exploratory Data Analysis, said exactly this. He said, whenever you are analyzing data, whenever you're trying to analyze, to understand the messages that a data set may contain, always visualize your data, because otherwise there will be features in the data that you will not be able to spot, that you will not be able to see. It is only when you transform numbers into some sort of picture, some sort of image, that you will be able to see the patterns, the trends, the insights, the stories that hide behind those numbers. We can clearly see that with an example that I have put repeatedly in talks and in books and in classes, this very famous data set of global temperatures, average global temperatures from the year 1000 up to the year 2000, measured in Celsius degrees. And in comparison, these numbers are in comparison to the average of the 20th century. That's the zero baseline. That's the reason why you see positive values and negative values in this data set, although I am only showing you a couple of screenshots from the data set. In any case, when should we make a visualization and when should we not make a visualization, functionally speaking? Well, we should not make a visualization if the purpose of the object that we are creating, that we are designing to inform the public, is to let the reader see each specific value. If that is the purpose of whatever it is that you are designing, nothing beats a table. A table is great. If you want people to be able to see what the average temperature was in 1886, a table is great, right? You just lay out the information on a table, people can go to the corresponding row, take a look at the corresponding number, and boom, they can see that specific value. However, when we don't care that much about the details, the nitty-gritty, each specific value, when we care more about the bird's eye view picture of the data, the overall patterns and trends behind the data, the main insights that a data set may contain, it is much better to transform these numbers into a data visualization. These numbers are the source, the base of a very famous graphic designed in the at the beginning of the 21st century. It was designed in 1995, if I'm not wrong, originally, but it became famous in 2001 after it appeared in the third Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report in 2001. This graphic is commonly called the hockey stick chart. And the name, the common name of this chart actually describes the pattern that the graphic is showing, right? The pattern is showing is that in the past, from the year 1000 up to the year 1900, more or less, global temperatures, which is the blue line, those are the estimates of temperatures in the past, they varied. They went up and down, up and down, but within a certain range. There's certainly uncertainty in these estimates. That's the gray area, the level of uncertainty. But the best estimates that scientists provide say that temperature varied, went up and down, but within a certain range. It is only when we get to the beginning of the 20th century that those temperatures spike up very, very rapidly. That is the pattern that you cannot see, that we cannot see on a table. We can only spot that pattern, that trend in the data, that directionality of the data in this case, when we represent the data graphically. So the first answer to the question, do I need a data visualization, is Do I care more about the specifics, or do I care more about the big picture? Because if I care more about the big picture, if I care more about the overall patterns and trends in the data, I do need a data visualization more often than not. Whereas if we care about each specific value, then a table is much better than a data visualization. Data visualization is a visual representation of all these quantities, obviously. But there is another answer to that question. Do I need a data visualization, or should I make a data visualization in the first place? That relates more and more to the ethical component of our work. Because sometimes by making a data visualization, we may endanger people. We may put people in danger. Let me show you just an example that I will eventually use in some and describe in detail in some book. Back in 2012, there was a terrible mass shooting in an elementary school here in the United States. A person entered an elementary school with a gun, and that person killed tons of children, a few teachers. It was a complete, absolute tragedy that unfortunately is also common here in the United States. Anyway, a few days later, a newspaper in upstate New York, in the state of New York, the Journal News, published that map. Right? The map is not online anymore. It has disappeared. It was taken down. So what is this map showing? Each one of those dots that you have on that map represents a person, an adult, a citizen. I guess that a citizen. Each one represents a person who has a gun permit in upstate New York. A gun permit is essentially that there are some states in the United States that require that you have a gun permit in order to have a gun, right? So the Journal News got this data from the government. They did what is called a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request. They got the data from the government and they visualized the data, pinpointing the position, the addresses of each gun permit owner in upstate New York, in the counties where this newspaper operate. However, they got a lot of pushback. People who were represented on the map started protesting. Why are you showing my position, my address on a map like this? And the newspaper replied, tried to defend themselves, people who work in the newspaper, saying, we felt that sharing information about gun permits in our area was important in the aftermath of the Newtown shootings. Newtown is the city where the elementary school was. Well, really? Is that important? Because as a journalist myself, who is not a fan of guns, I must say, right, I would say that this map is not that appropriate. If I had to design something like this myself, maybe I would do it quite differently, or even think about whether I should do it at all, for several reasons. And I will get to those. But before I will get to the next slide, which is that big why. Why is a question that we need to ask ourselves as visualization designers more often. Why should that map exist? What purpose does it serve? Not only that, why should this data be made public in the first place? Well, it's already public, obviously, because it's part of the public record, but it is difficult to access. If people want to access this data, you need to request that data from the government. So there is a barrier of entry to obtain this data from the government. Should the data be made public with a map? That's the other question that we can ask ourselves. And if the answer is yes, should it be this type of map? I mean, aren't there other types of maps that could help you show the concentration or dispersion, more gun owners, fewer gun owners, perhaps in a way that doesn't pinpoint the position of those people? Maybe you could use shades of color, right? You could subdivide the map into counties or into neighborhoods, and then use different shades of color to represent the concentration of gun owners in each one of the neighborhoods. And in that way, you will not disclose the position of each one of these people. Because you need to remember, these people are just normal people. They are not even gun owners. They are gun permit holders, which is going to be, it would be another thing that I would consider if I was dealing with this data, that we are not dealing with people who have guns. Not only that, even if we did, these people are not criminals, are people who have just guns. That's completely legal in the United States. But it's not even that they have guns. They have a gun permit. but they may not have guns. I can have a gun permit just because, I don't know, I'm making this up, but let's say that I like to shoot in a shooting range somewhere, and probably I will get a gun permit just to operate that gun. But that doesn't mean that I have a gun at home, right? It's two completely different things. So these are the types of considerations that will guide my thinking process in a case like this. These are all ethical considerations. Am I dealing with the right data? Am I depicting what I want to depict? Is this related at all with the story at hand? How is this even related to mass shootings? These are not criminals. These are just people who have gun permits, right? And if the point is to show there are many people who have gun permits in upstate New York, right? That could be a good reason to publish a map about that. There are better ways to represent the data without pinpointing the position of every gun permit holder in the United States. And the critical question is, does the benefits of publishing something like this outweigh the potential harm that this visualization may cause? That should always be in the back of your mind. What benefit does your visualization serve versus what potential harm your visualization could cause? Very important question. So why should we visualize at all?